Imagine a place where the land is soaking wet. A land full of living things. Come with me as we explore wetlands.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Science rules.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Inertia is a property of matter.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
T minus 7 seconds.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Brought to you by Mr. Swampy Water Filter. When you need to filter water, try Mr. Swampy.
Oh, hi. This is a wetland. A wetland is any place where the land is wet. That's what I got the idea for the name. A place like a swamp, bog, or a marsh. Now, wetlands have soil that's soaking wet with water. They're beautiful. They're fabulous. They're wetlands. 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 Take a look at these. There are miniature wetlands of science. So over here we have a model of a wetland. It's full of plants. Now, the kind of plants that grow in wetlands like to be soaking wet at least part of the year. And back here, we have a lot of water. This would be the water that might come from a big rainstorm, and it's a little bit muddy. Watch what happens when we let this water flow into the wetland. So the water goes downhill, but not that fast. The plants and the roots of the plants slow it down a little bit. They hold back the dirt particles and let them settle out. Now, an area with this many plants is going to have a lot of things that might eat plants, and things that eat things that eat plants. It's going to have a lot of wildlife. And look, the water that's coming out the other side of the wetland is cleaned up a little bit. It's not nearly as dirty as the water that went in. Now, take a look at this side. It's the same size wetland, but humans have come along and dug a big canal right here, maybe built some dams or dikes and built some houses. Now, watch what happens when we let the same amount of water flow into this wetland. Water's going down and overflowing the side of the dam or dike right into the front porches of those houses. And the cars are washing away too. See, there isn't as much land to soak up the flood. And also the water stays muddy or dirty. And with all these houses and people around, there isn't going to be a lot of wildlife. So wetlands do three things. First of all, they help control floods. They soak up the water that flows into them. Secondly, they filter the water naturally, kind of like a giant coffee filter. Thirdly, they provide a home to a lot of living things, especially wildlife. Wetlands are beautiful! Wetlands are beautiful! Wetlands are beautiful! See?
New this fall on Nispan, Little House on the Wetlands.
There are all different kinds of wetlands. Oh yeah, there's swamps, bogs, and marshes. This is a marsh. You can tell because of the weeds and reeds that grow around here. If there were tall, twisty trees, then there might be a swamp. And if the soil were this thick mat of fibrous vegetable matter, that might be a bog. Now, there's wetlands all over the world. See, there's the marshes and bogs, swamps, bogs and bogs and bogs, swamps, marshes, bogs, all that stuff, and they're beautiful places. And you can see that it's raining, and the rain is not hurting this wetland. The rain is helping to make it a rich, beautiful, wet place full of living things. Free science good. Free pizza.
Wetland. The land is mostly full of water. It's wet, and it's land. It's wet, and it's land. It's wet, and it's land.
Wetland.
Wetland.
Wetlands. Wetlands. Okay, I got it. Wetlands. Boy.
Wetlands. Oh, those crazy wetlands. How I love them. They're wet, and they're lands. Oh, wetlands. They soak up the flooding and are home to lots of species of wildlife. Oh, wetlands, just give me those kooky wetlands, and I'll be so happy. Thank you very much. Oh, wetlands, they're wet.
How can wet land soak up floods? Wouldn't bare, dry dirt be better? Well, please consider the following. Wetlands soak up floods in a couple of ways. First of all, water sticks to water. Take a look at this. Here's a moist or wet sponge, and here's a very dry sponge. When you put them in water, the moist sponge soaks up water a lot faster than the dry sponge. That's because water molecules stick to other water molecules. It happens in sponges, and it happens in wetlands. Wetlands are also where a lot of plants grow, and plants
Slow water down.
Take a look at this. These are our water marble wetland models of science.
Bill?
The marbles are like water, and these pegs are like the roots and stems of plants in a wetland. This side is like bare, dry dirt. Now watch what happens when we lift the gates and let the water flow over the land. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
Hey!
See, the marbles on the dry side
Thank you.
flowed right through, but the marbles on the wetland side were held back a little bit by the pegs, just like water in a real wetland is held by plants. In real wetlands, it can take weeks for the water to flow out of them. So wetlands slow down floods by holding them back with the roots and stems of plants. Well, thank you for joining me on...
We're trying to make a trail through the wetlands here because most people look at wetlands as just being useless and having no purpose.
Wetland is a great purifier with all bacteria that's in there and everything.
Wetlands are a lot like a sponge. As you can see here, they absorb a lot of the rainwater.
It's really quite fun to work in the mud. By building a trail through here, we can bring people through so that they can see the beauty of it and want to preserve the wetlands.
The thing is, people think wetlands are more like wastelands, and that's a bad thing.
Wetlands! Well, this type of soil is either peaty, it's like peat, which is like this moss stuff, or it's muck, like this. This is the technical name. Muck. Yeah. You see, people think that muck is quicksand. Quicksand! Like you see in the movies. Is really, really, really wet land. Wet land! Wet land! Now, quicksand probably happens where there's an underground source of water, like a spring or a stream. And the water coming up through the sand pushes the sand grains so far apart that they're just barely touching, so that the quicksand is mostly water. Now, some people think that when you fall in quicksand, it will suck you down and you'll disappear. Well, really, you would just sink. So you might be walking along on what looks like solid ground, then you come to a quicksand pit, and you sink. But really, you're just sinking in water. So if you could turn over and float on your back, you should be okay. On your back. Okay, he's all right. He's all right. He's all right, aren't you? Just lie on your back and breathe for a while, and then about getting out of the muck. I don't really have that worked out yet, but you wouldn't drown. Have the rope. Oh, that's great. Oh, that is nice. This will be no problem now. Okay, hold it. Yeah, he's okay.
No, I'm not. I'm cold. I'm wet. My sinuses are acting up.
You go. Great job.
It came from the swamp. A creature so horrifying, so slimy, so cheap. See, I was a teenage swamp monster.
That's so weird. See, people think that swamps, bogs, and marshes are scary because they're so full of living things, especially living things that move around at night. That's why people think that wetlands are spooky, but they're just wetlands. This is the soil of a wetland. And this soil is full of living things. The wetland is formed where the stream is running through the forest floor. And the nutrients in the soil are naturally being washed downstream all the time as the water flows. And the saturated soil right here, right next to the stream, is very narrow, but it's still a wetland. From up here, it's easy to see where the lowlands are, where the silt and stuff that washes downstream settles. And it's good to grow things there because the soil is rich. It's full of stuff, fertilizer, nutrients. So things grow here, great. It's a wetland. This is an estuary. It's where water from this river mixes with water from that bay, from the sea. Now around here is a wetland. This is where the detritus is holding living things that fish can feed on. So without the river and the estuary and the wetland, there wouldn't be any fish here. Beautiful, isn't it?
Many of our most valuable fish and waterfowl resources are found in marshlands and estuaries along our coasts. Destroy estuaries, and you destroy vast spawning, nesting, and food-producing areas. Yet developers are filling these wetlands for homes at an alarming rate. Is this using our resources wisely?
This is a wetland. It's being filled in so that humans can build some more buildings. Let's go to the chalkboard. So let's say this is a wetland.
Okay, it's a wetland.
And it's full of water. Now, if someone comes along and wants to build a building here, see, then what they often do is fill in the wetland under the building. Build it up like this, with dirt. But then what happens when it rains, the water that would have been in this part of the wetland ends up over here. See? So what happens is you have to make the building even higher, maybe on stilts. Now, all this costs money. Also, sometimes they build a bridge for cars to come across onto the wetland. See, it ends up costing a lot of money to build buildings on a wetland. Like, you could save money if you just leave the wetland and build somewhere else, okay? Otherwise, you're just throwing money away.
Maybe you shouldn't have done that.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that. This is a wetland that Native Americans call a prairie. It's a peat bog. Can you see it? It's a river of soggy soil. And every year, as plant material dies and leaves fall to the ground, the soil gets smushed down, compressed. Some of it's tens of thousands of years old. Hey, where are you going? Hey, careful.
Finally, a scent so powerful, it can only come from the finest decaying organic materials. Introducing Eau de Bog by Estuary Ladder.
Scientists figure that about a third of the world's endangered species depend on wetlands. See, an endangered species is a species that's in danger of dying out forever. Things like the Florida manatee or the Everglade kite, they've got to have wetlands to live. So when we dry out a wetland to make room for a parking lot or a shopping mall, we're drying out the homes of plants and animals. So they feel a little out of place. If you take away their homes, you take them away too. I mean, look at this place. Imagine trying to grow or swim around here. I don't think so. Look at that city. It's huge. It's built on a tide flat, what used to be a wetland. Lots of living things there. But once the city is built, nobody is ever going to say, well, let's tear it down and put the wetland back. I mean, it's never going to happen. Now, we covered over the wetland, built a street. We're not doing much filtering. The water's running right down in the stream into the bay. You've got to have a city. I mean, the city is going to be there. People are going to live there. But the wetland is gone forever. Once they're gone, they're gone.
If people can learn to conserve water and not tax the natural habitat, then both should be able to survive quite well.
I'm Mickey Rivera with the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm a biologist who studies pollution and how it affects wetlands. Oh, this is good. This dark, smelly soil is where it all starts in this wetland. Wetlands are important because not only are they the home for all these endangered species, you know, the fish, the plants, the animals, but they serve as protection for us too. You know, they serve to act as a sponge for contaminants that might eventually make their way out to the ocean, and they can also serve as flood protection. You know, we need these areas to protect our houses from floods. Well, you know, in Southern California, somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of our wetlands have been altered. As you can see, we've got some buildings right adjacent to the wetland. So my job out here is to check on the contaminants that are influencing this wetland. These contaminants come from industry, from houses, and from parking lots, and from agriculture. When I do my study, this is the stuff I look for. I'll send this stuff back to the lab to see how healthy it is.
Careful. Watch it there. Easy does it.
Wetlands are home to many different plants and wildlife. Whoa! Some are really wild.
Whoa!
This is a big wetland! The Everglades!
The Everglades is located in the southernmost part of the continental United States.
Rains all the time in the Everglades! See, it's wet. Wet, wet, wet. As far as the eye can see. The wetland. It's a great day for airboat, huh? Great day for airboat.
Yeah, it's a great day for airboating, yeah.
You see where the plants are growing in the water attached to the soil and the plants are growing on the land attached to the soil? That's because the soil is so full of water, there isn't much difference between being underwater or on the land. It's wet. Well, it's a wetland, hence the term. It's a wetland! It's wet! It's a wetland. It's fabulous.
Wetlands are great. Wetlands are wonderful. Wetlands are fabulous.
Show. Thanks for watching. If you'll excuse me, I've got some ancient hydric soil mechanics to investigate. See ya!
Produced in association with the National Science Foundation.
Over the years, we've really messed up a lot of wetlands. We've drained, dredged, diked, dumped, done all sorts of bad stuff to them, and it's made a mess. Today, we've destroyed over half of our wetlands, and that is just a very bad thing. If you know what I'm saying, if you dig me. Now that you know what wetlands are and why they're important, you say to me, hey, what can I do? Well, here's what you can do. Write to your congressman, city council, mayor, tell your parents, tell your grandparents. Oh, yeah, this is his early stuff. It's kind of going nuts there. We ought to pull back. I'm telling you. Okay, I should pull back. I mean, they're the greatest. Check this out, for crying out loud. I love to explore this place. So much neat stuff out here. There's so much neat stuff. Oh, it's on every station. Neat stuff out here.